Subcommittee meeting for October 25th, 2021. Can we please salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Chair and members of the audience, can I please ask for a moment of silence and reflection for two staff members who recently passed away out of our district, Norma Penny and Miss Doris Lynch. May they rest in peace, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Longman. Good evening, everybody. So the superintendent, please call the roll.
Ms. Chisholm.
Here.
Ms. Cormier.
Present.
Mr. Lipset. Here. Mr. Kissel.
Here.
Mr. Mulrennan.
Present.
Dr. Wells.
Here.
Ms. Crowley.
Present. Okay, looks like we're all here and accounted for. I just want to make an announcement that this meeting will be live streamed at Woburn Public Media Station. It will be recorded. So if you will be speaking in front of the school committee tonight, you are consenting to being recorded. First, second on the agenda is the approval of minutes of 10/13/21. Any action?
Motion to approve?
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Do I have any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. And public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to come before the school committee and speak? I have one person. Hello. Good evening.
Right here?
Sure. Could just state your name for the record, and you could just name your street, so you don't have to.
Sure. My name is Heather Wilson, and I have two students in high school.
Okay.
Tonight, I just wanted to come to the board and to the parents out there and talk about some facts about this COVID vaccine for our children. And these are from the CDC website and FDA. First, children are the lowest risk for contracting, spreading, or having any ill effects from the COVID virus. Second, this is the first mRNA vaccine ever approved, and the FDA did not take their usual 5 to 10 year protocol for determining if it is effective and if it could possibly cause harm. So far, we have found that the vaccine is less than 45% effective. People that got the vaccine are still contracting COVID and spreading COVID. We already have seen over 800,000 adverse reactions. This is from the VAERS report just of last week. Of those reactions, there's an alarming number of cardiovascular system effects, the inflammation of the heart, blood clotting, abnormal bleeding, menstrual periods. There has actually been over 17,000 deaths from this vaccine that just started at the beginning of this year, and that is over double the amount of deaths of all the 30 years of vaccines that we've had. The other thing is that natural immunity is not even being considered when people are if they have the option of taking the vaccine or not. I know that we're not mandating vaccines for our children. I know it's still an option, and that there possibly could be one for 5 to 12-year-olds coming out. I pray that the FDA will not approve that. But my last fact that is not even a fact is that we, me, you, the doctors, the experts, even the people that developed the vaccine, do not know the long-term effects. And I know we all care about our children. We want to protect them. I just ask, as you go forward in making your decisions about what you want to do about this, that you think about the possible harmful effects that we could have down the road 5 to 10 years from now on our next generation. Thank you for your time. God bless you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to come before the school committee? No? All right. So we will now close public comment. And we will turn now to our student representative, the school committee, which might take a moment or two to set up. And I want to thank Ms. Young for graciously allowing her to transmit into the meeting.
You're good, it's me. I just had to close it and go back out.
Okay, no problem.
president on. I'm not sure. Do you want to just click it off and on again?
Hi, Faith, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. If it's okay, we'll just do it this way?
Yep.
You're
Thank
not
you,
on
Dr.
screen
Crowley.
per se, but everyone can hear you, okay?
Okay, great. Can I start?
Please.
Someone has an echo.
So, in terms of upcoming events happening at the high school, 10/27 will be an early release day for students. On this Thursday, the National Honor Society induction will take place from 6:30 to 8:30. On 10/29, there will be a job fair happening from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. in the cafe. On November 2nd, there will be no school for students as there will be election day. November 3rd will be picture makeup day. On November 6th, the high school will hold an SAT. From November 9th to November 10th, the MCAS for math retakes will be taking place. On November 11th, it will be Veterans Day, so there will be no school. On November 19th, the Key Club will hold their first blood drive at WMHS. On 11/19, the homecoming dance will take place. On November 24th, there will be an 11 a.m. early release. And on 11/24, also there will be the football game at Fenway Park at 7:30 p.m. and ticket sales will be advertised soon. In terms of other news, senior Sahana Dar was named a commended student in the 2022 National Merit Scholarship Program. About 34,000 commended students throughout the nation were recognized for their exceptional academic promise to this school year. Although commended students will not continue in the 2022 competition for the National Merit Scholarship Awards, they are placed amongst the top 50,000 students who entered the 2022 competition by taking the 2020 preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, or the PSAT. There will be a Wmhs Job Fair taking place in the cafeteria. Students that wish to attend should sign up ahead of time using the QR code. This will be one of two job fairs at WMHS that will be held in conjunction with Mass Hire this school year and is geared towards seasonal employment leading up to the holiday season. A Mass Hire representative, Ms. Grace Evans, is also at the high school every Friday to assist students in finding employment, creating resumes and other employment skills. She can be contacted Monday through Friday via email. In terms of more senior recognitions, each year the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents recognizes top students at each high school in the Commonwealth. The number of students selected is based on the size of graduating class, and this year it is a privilege to honor two students at WMHS. Both these students represent everything that is good about Woburn Public Schools, with having attending the elementary and middle schools in Woburn before flourishing at WMHS. The recognition is given at this time so that the recipients are able to include their awards on their college applications. This year, these outstanding students are Sahana Dar and Process Engineer, pictured with Superintendent Dr. Matt Crowley. Process Engineer also was recognized for achievement on the PSAT. Her scores did qualify her to move forward to compete for the 2022 National Merit Scholarship. That concludes my high school report.
Well, thank you, Ms. Fronduto. That was, as always, very thorough and very interesting. I just want to make sure, Ms. McLeod, did you hear her okay in 3 minutes? Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions for Faith? Yes, Mrs. Chisholm has a question.
On the tickets for Fenway, are those going to be sold just at the high school, or are they going to be sold somewhere else that the public could get more access to?
Did you catch that,
Yeah,
Faith?
Yeah, those questions about the Fenway tickets, that is still to be determined. I'm not entirely sure if Ms. Callanan is only going to sell them at the high school, but I would assume that they would be sold to the public as well. But hopefully next meeting I'll have more details than that.
That's fantastic. Any other questions for Ms. Frondudo? No? Okay.
Faith, can you just clarify, there was an election, correct? So you're going to be joined in the future?
Oh yes, the student representative, the other one that's a junior, her name is Sophia Ferksey, and she will be attending the next school committee meeting with me. So she's going to kind of shadow what I do, and then hopefully in the future be solo when she presents her agenda.
I like it, on-the-job training.
That's it.
That's great. I'm sorry, Mr. Mulrennan has a question for you.
And good evening, Madam Chair. If you could ask Faith, I believe I saw that she's involved with the WMHS science team. Is that correct, Faith?
Sorry.
Yes, that is correct. We have a competition, I believe, November 11th. Yeah.
Oh,
Didn't you just have one recently as well?
We did in October, yeah. I think the entire school placed, I want to say either 7th or 8th out of, I think, 12 schools, so we did pretty good.
And obviously, it's difficult during these troubled times, but how do you feel the format worked out under the conditions?
I feel like it worked out pretty well. We weren't able to travel to other schools like we would in traditional years, but we still used the virtual platform to compete, obviously, in school with our other students, which is a big change from last year, which was just totally virtual. But it's still fun that way.
Great to hear that. And obviously, if you ever have a fan bus to sign up, let us know. We'll all climb on the fan bus and go watch the science team compete. Good luck.
Awesome.
all right. Well, thank you, Faith. Anything else before she...
Those are homework.
Okay, you're welcome to stay and deliberate on any matter in front of the agenda, but if you must go, you must go.
Great. Thank you for having me. Thank
Of
you.
course.
Good night, Faith.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Dr. Wells?
since we have a new representative next meeting, maybe if we want to invite them to come in person, just so they can experience.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Thank you, Dr. Wells.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Mulrennan.
Sorry, Charlie. Just
That's okay.
Faith introduced us to two outstanding students that were
Yes,
selected
thank
by
you.
the superintendents. I didn't know if, she said a little bit about the young adults. I don't know if Dr. Crowley had any more to add.
Yeah, so Shoshana and Persons were the students selected. It's predicated on class rank, and we do this by the Superintendent Association, present them with a certificate at this time of year, as Faith indicated, so that they can include it on their college applications. When I present the certificate, I talk to the students because I want to learn all about them. Both our entire academic career has been the Woburn Public Schools. Different elementary, different middle, and both at the high school. And so,
Use the microphone just so
sorry.
That's
Yep.
okay.
And both are incredibly talented young students and are in the process of applying to colleges, but didn't want to commit to tell me exactly where. So I'll get back to you on their future plans. But it's always nice to recognize academic excellence.
So with that said, Dr. Crowley, to make a motion, we submit a letter by way of the chairperson to those students congratulating them on this accomplishment.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We will draft a letter to these amazing young students. Wish them congratulations. All right, moving on. Unless there's anything else? No. Great. No, that's fine. Face covering policy review.
Madam Chair, but I don't know if we want to suspend the regular order of business so we can have the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee give their presentation first in case we wanted to leave early.
Sure.
Make a motion, we have Cpac present, go out of order for B and hold off on A.
All right. Okay, any discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we will adjust the agenda and hear from the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee. Ms. Alyssa Milton and Ms. Julie Cotton.
I think we gave our last update, the first meeting, it was virtual.
Yeah, I think so. I remember
This is
that.
the first, so I was not even used to that, and this is the first meeting, this is the first time I've spoken in front of a group of people.
Well, welcome.
I'm just going to pull this in a bit, just,
Yep.
is it
Of course.
picking us up okay? All right.
All right, so my name is Alyssa Milton. I'm president of Wmhs Cpac.
And I'm Julie Cotton, I'm the vice president.
And we know everybody, you all know us, you know what Cpac does. We're going to back up for a little bit just for people who are watching.
Absolutely.
So CPAC stands for Special Education Parent Advisory Council. Our focus is the needs of students utilizing special education services in Woburn and their families. However, CPAC meetings are fully open to the public, to any interested parties. So anyone in Woburn or outside of Woburn is welcome to join us as well. Our hope is that anyone who might be interested in following along with education in Woburn would want to reach out to us and attend meetings. CPAC leadership are all volunteers and are selected through nomination and voting. CPACs are also meant to be envisioned as, quote, an arm of the school district, that's how it's written, working in partnership with the district and regarded by the district as an integral advisory board and a conduit between school administration and families.
So the role of Cpac sort of there has three different buckets. One is to offer membership to all parents, legal guardians, caregivers of students that are found eligible for special education services. So that's a very easy one. It's to provide advice to the district in special education programs and policies. And then as well to meet at regular intervals with designated school officials and to engage in other activities which enable the PAC, Parents Advisory Council, to participate in the planning, development, and evaluation of the school district's special education programs.
For us to effectively advocate and advise, the state also defines the role of school districts in working with CPACs. School districts are charged with assisting the PAC in maintaining its operation and activities. So what does that look like? School district assistance must be provided without charge, but is subject to the availability of staff and resources. There will be a good faith effort by the school district to provide assistance to the PAC. School administration should be available to meet with PAC leadership in regular intervals. Administration should include CPAC in an advisory role when planning new programming or revising existing programs. And administration should utilize CPAC for data collection from families regarding their experiences and or needs related to special education.
So this can look like a variety of things. For us, what it's looked like, school committee members often attend our meetings. Several of you here have been on frequently. We participate in the SSA subcommittee meetings, Student Services and Achievement. So we regularly are invited to those meetings. I went for a long time, and Julie's been kind enough to be going for the last few months. And they're chaired by school committee member Cormier. And we report our recent meetings, any other conversations we have with people in the district when we have our CPAC meetings. So we also have periodic meetings individually with Maureen, the Director of Special Education, just to discuss recent events, developments, updates, things like that. And then there's a lot of email communication back and forth with Maureen and other people, school committee members and other administrators about things that are going on in the district.
CPAC has had some challenges in the past 2 years, although I think that's kind of a shared experience. We lost our secretary in 2019, and no one since has volunteered to be nominated for that position. So we've sort of been juggling that role, absorbed into our other roles. We have just three board members, which leaves us with lots of ideas but little manpower. We are committed to fulfilling our duty as an advocacy and advisory board, and will do so to the best of our ability. In the meantime, we're hoping for more community engagement to support us in that endeavor so we can be our most effective. We would welcome school committee's help in spreading the word about us and opportunities to volunteer, either at board level or for shorter commitments.
So moving forward, we've sort of done some planning for the next year and sort of.
Do you want?
Keep going.
Nope.
No, keep going.
Keep going.
Right there.
Every time you looked at me, I changed the slide.
Oh, no, I was like.
We need a signal or something.
Yeah.
I'll tug on my ear.
Like a bunt signal here.
So we've really looked over the last few months trying to come up with some goals for CPAC, just coming out of COVID and just in general to try to be strategic about things. So we've identified three things. One is to increase our resource building capacity, to bring more data and information to the community. This includes information about schools as a whole, about the status of special education here and across the state, and about local opportunities for students with disabilities. We've been interfacing more actively with community groups and would like to continue to do this. Those groups that are invested in education and providing for better outcomes for people with disabilities in Woburn, so not just students here. Groups like this include the Commission on Disabilities, the Public Library, Recreation Departments, and others. If we can interact and share ideas with these groups to the ability the three of us are able to, we can align our efforts and we can build relationships and just get more things done. So we're also trying, as our third one, trying to create more community engagement. This goes in two directions. To advise the district, we need to know what the community needs. To increase community engagement, we need the community to see that their time and effort are spent sharing when they were giving their reflections, concerns, and experiences with us. That's worthwhile because it's yielding measurable positive outcomes to district action. At the moment, our monthly meetings sit in very low attendance, and we're hoping that by increasing attendance at our meetings, we will be able to add more people to our board. There is one last sticking point. Our primary directive from the state is to be an advisory board to the district. We have been in the audience for years, but we would like to move to the front row. We need to stay actively engaged with the district, and we need the district to stay actively engaged with us. One example for this is the district starting pulling us into all the discussions about intended programming changes before those changes are made, because our input is desired and necessary.
So most
So
importantly,
here.
oh, there we go, switching over. Most importantly, it means that when we bring issues to the district, we build a plan with the district for how to address these issues with steps and a timeline in place. Accountability happens in the follow-through, and we need to be able to demonstrate to families that once we open a dialogue with the district, it triggers a thoughtful process in which items of concern are addressed with the common goal of solving the problem, which of course is what we would all be doing. Given that our experiences are in the special education world, we like to think of this sort of like setting up IEP goals, because then it's easier to break down steps. So we're talking here about SMART goals. This process would be ideal for those issues that never quite rise to the top in terms of immediacy, but become sort of long-term sticking points for a lot of people that need to be addressed in some way at some point. A process detailing steps along the way shows that progress is being made behind the curtain, so to speak, so families know they're being heard.
All right, so we have got, I think you introduced the SMART goals. So we're feeling that one way CPAC can uphold our end of the process is by staying in frequent communication with the school committee to report on what's going on, what has been shared with us, and what we would like to see. We would like to be added to upcoming meeting agendas so that as frequently as we are able to, we can give really brief updates. This will also assist us in our mission to find more families who may want to be part of CPAC and attend meetings. With all that being said, thank you for this opportunity to present tonight, and we look forward to many more in the future. And our next meeting, so our next meeting is November 17th, which is going to be over Zoom on eligibility and evaluation. And then Julie and I just spoke with Maureen today, and we've set up a meeting to speak with her about some of the goals so we can lay them out together, so it's not necessarily CPAC coming forward and saying these are all the things we want, but making sure that it's a two-way street so we can communicate with each other. Thank you very much. Yes.
All right. Mr. Kissel.
Question, you mentioned that attendance has been pretty low. How long have you been doing virtual as opposed to in person since?
We've been doing virtual since April of 2020.
2020.
Yeah. And so definitely I think attendance has been much more low since the end of the school year last year.
Probably.
I think when people were getting burnt out, I think that's part of it.
Yeah,
We did hybrid the last two times, and as you know, it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
And then one of the things we like with the goal is like before meetings to have something sent out. I know Adriana Mendez Sheldon does a newsletter, just being included in that and some other ways we can brainstorm with people to figure out when people, when meetings are happening, so they know they're happening.
Yeah, to be honest, I assumed as a virtual, you'd pick up more people because they don't have to travel. And
So I think the last
It did happen
year,
for a little while.
Pretty good meetings, yeah.
I think once we got through the initial Zoom adjustment, those first few months, we did have a bit of an increase in attendance for a little while because it was easier to not have to leave your house, not have to make sure somebody else had the kids, whatever. But I like Alyssa said, I think everyone's getting a little burned out on Zoom, and we tried to. I think we did 2 virtual meetings that were also hybrid. So we went somewhere, we sat at a table, and we had Zoom open as well, so people could be in front of us, people could be on Zoom, and technically that was a little challenging to maneuver, but it did allow a couple more people to come in. But ideally, we'd have more community engagement in general. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
Dr. Wells.
Yeah, thank you for coming before us. So one question in regards to disseminating information about your group. Do we do anything with the school department where like a flyer describing your program is given to all the families so that they know about it?
A flyer describing
The CPAC. Like it would just have like, here's the information, something like when you first come into the schools, you get all these things, just one of those pieces of paper. Here's the CPAC, here's the officers, here's contact information. That way,
Ideally, we go out then and then maybe the IEP meeting every
Yeah.
year, just to remind.
You know, but like just when everybody comes into, you know, when they first come into the system, they're given the information and it could be updated every school year. So that's just a suggestion to sort of broaden, you know, the knowledge about the group. The other question I had is, you know, you're aware of the SA committee that Ms. Cormier runs. And I think that's where a lot of the discussion about programs is coming and so forth. Do you think it would be easier for your group to attend to these meetings if we had picked, you know, one day a month where we had these meetings and it was after, you know, work time, and so something like that where...
Do you mean members of, like, to have more?
Well, you want to
people
have participation at the table in terms of hearing about what's happening in the program. And essentially, anything that we do in the program is going to go through that subcommittee.
One of us has been there.
Yeah,
for-
I know, but I'm thinking in terms of making it more accessible. I don't know. If it's fine, it is. It's fine. You know
They're
what I'm saying?
actually, I
Having
find
it-
they've been very accessible, actually.
Okay.
I
That's good
don't think
time.
I've missed one. Yeah, the timing's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't think, yeah, I appreciate you asking about that. We haven't had any difficulty getting to those meetings, and we've been able to attend
Okay.
really regularly. And those are a really great resource. And I know there'll be a report on our most recent
Yeah.
meeting tonight. But in terms of, like, we feel we're able to access information. The tricky part is getting community engagement, getting information from the community, bringing it to the district, and then having people feel like that process becomes fruitful in a way they can see. And that's
Right.
why for us having measurable goals and things that we can work on with the district feels like a good way to show, like, the wheels are turning, people are hearing you, and like this is an effective process for you. But I appreciate the question.
Yeah. But I think that's the main, that should, I think, really where you can make the most input, because that's where they meet before decisions are made, ideas are brought there and so forth. And so I think maybe thinking about how you can bring ideas to that committee, you know, about what you're hearing from your community, and that can be interplayed into the development of ideas by the
Yeah.
administration.
Yeah, that is actually typically part of the
Yeah.
presentation we
Yeah.
give
Okay.
at SSA. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. Mr. Lipset.
So I know that there was a bill kicking around Beacon Hill for a little while that would have given CPACs a non-voting membership on all local school committees. I wanted to just sort of get your thoughts on whether you thought that would be helpful as either as a local adjustment or as a statewide change, and if there are any other ideas that you might have in terms of how the school committee can best help your mission and help us work together and advance the district.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be great if there was a member of somebody who was part of CPAC was also part of this conversation. And then other ideas, sorry, trying to think, do you have any like off the top of your head? I mean,
Not
I
to
think,
put you on the spot. But.
No,
I should
that's a great
have completely
question.
had this. Yeah, I mean, I think, I think it's we have families that are feeling really frustrated that it's been years they've been sort of asking for the same thing or something to happen. And it's either that things have happened, but the communication has not let people know that there has been progress, or it's just nothing is happening. So I think that's sort of that two levels of frustration, and we're always so I think that's one thing, that if there was a better way for the schools to actually communicate to people and let them know the good things that are happening, I think that would be a first step. Because I think people, if you think nothing's happening, it's just really frustrating. I think that's part of the reason people aren't participating as much, that they've been coming for years and sort of asking for the same stuff, and in their mind nothing's happening, which maybe it is, but a lot of times that's not true. So I think that would be one thing, just to have better communication. And if there's a way you all could facilitate, that would be great.
I find personally that the way some of these systems tend to work can be that things are happening quietly in the background, there's pieces, people have to have conversations, they have to meet, they have to discuss something, and then you start to see the results of it. It's not immediate. And so I think that the more we're able to share, like Alyssa said, even positive things that are happening in the district, share some of because our job is not necessarily to try to litigate individual issues community members are having, but to understand if things are happening on a broader spectrum in the community, if there's a certain type of issue that comes up frequently, to be able to advocate for that and to sort of brainstorm. And so if we can show pieces are happening along the way, even if it's small incremental changes or plans that are in place, I think that helps show people things are happening, like you're being heard, we're advocating for you, they're hearing it, and they're working with us, and it just kind of gives better trust all around. I think that would probably, just that communication piece really I think would make people feel a lot more like they're being heard.
And I think, I mean, we used to present more regularly before COVID, so I think just sort of jumping back in there and giving more regular updates, I think that will, we didn't really give you much of an update on what we've actually been doing, what's happening, sort of more of a brief introduction again. So I think that will definitely help so that you also know where we are and we can hear a little bit more about what's going on and sort of how things fit together.
So what I'm hearing basically is that Cpac can serve as a conduit for communication between the district, the committee, and the public at large. And the more information you have, the better off the community is, the more information that we are able to get, the better off it is.
Absolutely.
I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Okay. Any further questions for, yes, Mr. Mulrennan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, ladies. Great job tonight. Thank you for sending it early ahead of time, and tonight's presentation was awesome. I just need to ask the administration how we can link this onto the school, Woburn Public School website. Obviously, we've seen it. Those people at home that are broadcasting tonight, looking at it, but for future people, and you can let anybody else know that it's on the website and not just under the special ed, tab or Cpac tab. It's right on the link under the Woburn Public Schools. Should anybody be interested in something like this, how to get involved, I think you guys pretty much covered all of it. So I think, again, communications and getting yourselves noticed. It's nice to see you here in person again, and hopefully we'll have you on the agenda of future meetings as well to update us on all the great things you've been doing. So
Excellent.
Absolutely.
get that on the website.
WoburnCpac.org. I don't know.
It's behind you.
There you go.
I should know this.
That's why I'm
WoburnCpac.org, and we have a Facebook page, and you have to type out Woburn Special Education Parent Advisory Council and Committee, and I was not able to change the name to make it shorter and easier to find, but we tend to post somewhat frequently on there, and all of our meetings and things get posted up on our website, and of course they go up on the list of agendas for the city as well. So.
And then the one thing I guess I'll add is that one of our ideas recently is to have a liaison from Cpac to the PTOs and the out-of-district parents, just to try and get some more communication there so PTOs are aware of what's going on. And again, trying to build that community so it's not just about the Cpac, but how can we make more of this sort of a community? And what's affecting one school is probably affecting another school, so how can we just share that?
Ms. Milton, I was sitting here and I was thinking, now I'm perplexed. Now I want to be a partner with you guys in order to create more community engagement. In my head, I was like, PTOs would be a good place to start.
Yeah.
Also, maybe a preschool program. The kids that are sort of entering into might be facing special education
We
for the
had
first time.
actually, before Pam Walker left, she had found a parent who could be the liaison, and then she left, and I have no idea who it was.
And when I was chair of SSA, I also got to the point where the housing authority, we're going to distribute information as well.
Oh, that's great.
And that was like 3 years ago. But I just want you to know that I consider Cpac on behalf of the school committee to be very important. And I think you have one of the most crucial jobs in the district, if not the city, because you advocate for the kids that are, perhaps facing some challenge, the most challenge, right? So you just do amazing work, and you're very important. And so I think that, now I'm going to reach out. I might have some good ideas.
Awesome.
Getting some
Great.
speakers
Thank you so
in.
much.
I have a lot of connections in the special education parent side community. Maybe getting some people here to do some presentations. So
That'd be great. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it's, I think COVID put a hole in everything that probably, we know that you think we're important, but I think just everybody's just trying to figure out how to reconnect and make all the pieces fit.
yes, but I think you play a crucial role, and we're very deeply grateful for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anything else, Ms. Cormier?
Yes, just to clarify to Dr. Wells' point, so in SSA, we get reports from the special ed department about changes that have happened, and it sounds like Cpac would like to be part of the discussion process prior to that point, because things are not brought to SSA that are sort of in the works or upcoming, but it's more that once the changes have been done, they're reported out through SSA. So it sounds like you guys perhaps would like to be part of that planning.
Yeah, insofar as one of our roles is to be an advisory committee to the district. Obviously not making the decisions, but to have that conversation. Yeah, absolutely. Insofar as we're able to do that, that would be great.
And Ms. Cotton has insightful questions during SSA and has no problem bringing up things that parents have brought up, and there's definitely a good communication during the meeting, but it's just after that point.
And for anybody who is moved by this presentation that would love to help out, we would love and welcome any community members, whether it's I can do once in a while, I can help out with this type of thing, or I would love to sit in on your meetings and type minutes for you, or anything like that. It can be a one-shot thing, and talking about PTOs in the preschool. Anybody who's in a PTO that would love to bring a Cpac report or some questions or some information to meetings, or that could connect us with the preschool, we absolutely welcome that. We would love that. So you can reach out to us.
To be continued, our work together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you all for having us tonight.
Thank you. Make a motion, we return to the regular order of business.
Second.
All right, so we're going to return to the regular order. Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Aye. All right, so back to A, reports and presentation of superintendent and staff, face covering policy review. I will state that we voted on a policy on September 2nd. We were preempted by the state shortly thereafter, where we are not legally able to change our policy to remove masks unless any school in the district is over 80% vaccination rate. So I will turn it now to administration to advise the school committee if any schools are at this point.
So the quick answer is no. The high school is at approximately 71.5% vaccination rate. And just to be clear, that includes staff, which is up over 95%, and then the student population. So it's a cumulative percentage, and that's how that is derived. That being said, that's the current DESI guidance that you alluded to is the 80% threshold. Just this evening, I was invited to a commissioner Zoom for tomorrow, and presumably there may be things that get brought up tomorrow as it relates to this policy, but my recommendation is that we wait and hear what the state indicates. So I think, we've been effectively in school since September, and it's working. So.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Wells.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would suggest that the administration, working with the high school, come up with a plan, but if say, they maintain the same level and we do get 80%, how would that be implemented? I think if planning ahead of time, bringing it to the committee, that way everybody would know what to think about. So maybe we'll have the high school work on, how parents would be notified. Would masks be optional? Things like that. How would it be determined? Is it only students that have been vaccinated and faculty that have been vaccinated that can take off masks? All these things could be worked out and brought to the committee so that if, one, the state stays with the same guidelines, and two, if we reach 80%, we're a little prepared before, so we don't have to wait 2 or 3 months after.
Right.
So that would just be my suggestion.
Okay. I agree with Dr. Wells. Does anyone else disagree with Dr. Wells? Okay. So before we would vote on, and I think we're only thinking about the high school at this point, given the vaccination availability. So I assume that if we do get 8 to 80%, that high school administration would be willing to give us their rollout plan, if you will. Okay. Anything else on face covering?
No.
Okay. So we should, the administration will advise me when we are close to the 80%, and I'll bring it back to the full committee?
I think we'll wait until our next meeting because the state will have their guidance tomorrow.
Yes.
Presumably, I didn't say
well,
what the
because it
agenda
ends
was.
November 1st, so
Okay.
they're going to have some guidance.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not going to wait till Friday.
All right. Okay, so that is to be continued with no decision made by the school committee because we are not able to at this time. Social emotional learning update. Dr. Baldessari, I think that is you. I'm very happy to have Ms. Kendra Stinson here tonight. Is going to be joining us as well. And Dr. Baldassare will be set up for that next presentation. Looks like in your packet you have the Woburn Public Schools Behavioral Health and Social Emotional Learning Program Guide.
All right. So, good evening, everyone.
Do you want to bring your name tag over, Mike?
What's that? Yeah. Well, let me start by introducing Kendra Stinson to the committee. Kendra comes to us with 2 decades experience in behavioral health, and you want to talk for just a minute about
Yeah,
how you found your
sure.
way here?
Thank you for having me tonight. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
A little bit.
That's for cable.
Yeah, it's just a cable, so people at home can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I am coming to you with about 20 years of experience as a school adjustment counselor and clinician. Currently in this role, I'm overseeing the school adjustment counseling services as well as the health and PE departments. And I've been here for about 2 months so far, or a little less than that maybe. And so far, it's been a wonderful transition, and I'm learning a lot about what Woburn Public Schools offers to support our students, and just looking to work on what's already in place and hoping to continue to develop those programs.
And in the 2 months that Ms. Stinson's been with us, she's developed strong relationships with our family and community engagement liaison, Adriana, our English learner coordinator, English language coordinator, Aaron Johnson, Diane Ivester. We've been working very closely to actually merging the health and wellness and the social emotional program.
Yep.
We'll have more about that later, but tonight we're really responding to some questions and concerns that came from the community and from the committee with regard to the social emotional health of our student population now. So this presentation is going to be specific to the behavioral health of our children and young adults. You may recall the Behavioral Health and Social Emotional Learning Program Guide that was given to you about 2 years ago, maybe a little longer. When I had first come to Woburn, the adjustment counselors were in place, but they were being used differently across the school buildings. In some cases, they were just responding to on-the-spot crises. In other cases, there were people going into classrooms and doing social emotional learning. There was the only data that we had was just people who randomly made referrals for random issues, and we weren't really tracking, the work that we were doing. So with the adjustment counselors, we created the model that you have in your packet to focus on evidence-based, data-driven methodologies that are rooted in what the needs are of our children and the needs of our school community. And the utilization of research-based, evidence-proven methods like TCIS and Match ADTC, and creating a system where we can monitor our students, not just by referrals that we're getting, but trying to find ways to monitor our students so that we can identify who needs counseling before it rises to the level of a volcanic need for crisis intervention services. And that's what we'll be talking to you about this evening. You may have seen this diagram before as I've used it in the past. TCIS has been spoken about so often here. I hope that everybody knows what it is and what we're doing there. I know that the committee has been involved in the approval of the William James Interface Service, and you'll find in your packet a report from Interface that says just how inundated they were in the last quarter, the last reporting quarter, and you can see that. We do use the Home for Little Wanderers, and that's for high-need students that need both in-school and out-of-school supports kind of simultaneously from the same service organization. And we have a Match ADTC. Kendra, if you'd like to comment on the Match work.
Yeah, so Match is a series of different tools that our clinicians can use, our school counselors can use to address certain needs that students have. So if a student is struggling with anxiety and needs to develop coping skills to manage that anxiety, they can use this as an intervention tool in a goal-focused, time-limited way so that they're helping them to build skills to manage whatever their particular need is. And all of the school adjustment counselors have been trained, except for a handful of 3 new counselors, and we've been in touch with the program to kind of have them come back out to retrain and give a refresher course for the adjustment counselors.
And then for our high need students, we have clinical consultations with either, it could be a board certified child and adolescent psychiatrist, a clinical psychologist, depending on what the individual needs are of kids. We don't use that resource often, but it is available for us. We have, what we're going to talk about this evening is 2 systems of data collection that are new this year. It says here, student data collection and monitoring, and you see all the names of the schools. In order for me to show you what that form looks like, I just need to go to here. Basically what happens now when a student is going to depart class for any reason, the staff member that is seeing the student out of the classroom, either because the student is selecting to leave or because the staff member is saying, I'm going to ask you to go to another location or to see another person in the school, the staff member is asked to complete this form that you see here. This is the high schools, and each principal has the opportunity to change their office referral form to the way that they see fit. So Jessica has crafted hers to fit the high school's needs, and the reason that it's done this way is because when this form is submitted, an email goes to that assistant principal there. If it were at the Alta Vista, it would go to Dr. Riley. If it were, and if it were at the her Wyman, it might go to Mrs. Kent or Dr. Kent or Mrs. Maloney. And what happens is the administrator will receive this, and there's lots of information on there: the teacher's name, the time of day, the reason for the referral, and when the administrator responds to what happened, it automatically sends a message back to the teacher so that the teacher knows what took place. Prior to this, the only incidents that would be tracked are those that are in the student data management system that warrant a detention or warrant a suspension or warrant some type of significant administrative interaction. And we wouldn't know how many times a child is leaving class, not in class, to go see a counselor, to go see an assistant principal, to go see a principal, to go see some other meaningful adult in the building or what have you. And we wouldn't know the reasons. So now with this form, we're able to see a whole host of reasons that the student can be, as you can see, can be missing class, not in class to go seek the attention of a meaningful adult in the school, or maybe the school nurse, or it could be any different number of people. So when I looked at the high school's spreadsheet for this system this morning, we already have about 1,300 entries. So what we're able to do is we are able to sort those entries by the name of the student. And we can see already in the first 6 weeks of school that there are 1 or 2 students who have missed class or been out of class 8, 9, 10, 12 times. And if those students are not receiving counseling services, we can then allocate a counselor to them to find out what is going on. We can also manipulate the data so that we can find out if we have students of color, low-income students, non-English speaking students who are missing classes for a number of reasons. If we see in the data that the reason that students are missing class is because of high anxiety, high academic pressure, we can see what the frequency is of these things. And we can apply professional development, or Kendra can work with the adjustment counselors to make sure that there's consultation happening with the teachers who may be referring students to these systems more often. The data that we're going to get from this is going to serve multiple purposes, but the most important purpose is that we are going to be able to monitor the wellness of our students in real time So hopefully it doesn't get to the next referral that Kendra will talk about.
So historically, all students, when they were referred, it was documented and there was a documentation process. Some schools were using online forms and some schools were using paper forms. So for this year, we transitioned to a streamlined online referral that all principals have access to, counseling staff at the elementary level. Teachers have access to this form, and at the middle and high school level, the guidance counselors and administration has this form. So when students, when student reaches the level of needing a higher level of need, so that could be via an IST or some type of maybe infraction that happened, a behavioral infraction, they might get referred, or some concerning information comes up, they can be referred to one of our guidance counselors through this form. And so that allows us to kind of give us a real understanding across the district of who's being referred, why they're being referred, and then we're better able to serve the students, understanding the student needs, and then also support the staff who are providing those services to know what supports they need, whether that be professional development training, the numbers of referrals they're getting, and just a better way of managing the needs of both the students and the staff and the buildings.
And what we've done is, over the last 3 years, is we've removed barriers to students receiving counseling. Counseling is a service that's available to any student in the Woburn Public Schools anytime they need it. You don't have to go through a rite of passage or 3 assessments to get the counseling service. You might have it 2 times or 3 times to resolve an acute need, and then never again. You might also have counseling again and again and again over a series of weeks, months, or years to keep the children or young adults connected to school. And why? We selected 4 panels of data to share with you from the YRBS that came out very recently for our middle schoolers and high schoolers. We had just under 900 high schoolers, I believe, take it, and maybe 600 or 700 middle schoolers. The responses that they gave are theirs, and the percentages that you see, this is how they responded, and this is information for us to use as we craft a model to keep our kids connected to learning moving forward. The question that was asked on this day was, during the past 30 days, how often was your mental health not good? And as you can see from 6th grade to 12th grade, that Woburn students were very close to that of the other students in the Middlesex League, stating that they felt that they had poor mental health in the past 30 days. Next one.
So this question for mental health is self-harm or seriously considered committing suicide in the past 12 months. As you can see, that our 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, a good portion of students have these feelings. Now, this does not mean, when students report this, their understanding of what that attempt looks like or what that means to them, it could be something like taking extra Advil, or it could be a larger attempt. Students' understanding of what that means does look different, but students did have a pretty strong consideration of having these feelings.
And you'll see that again on this slide, where this is the actual number of students who reported plans of how they would attempt suicide, and the number of students who actually said that they did attempt suicide. It's just about 70 students from grade 6 to 12, and we do know that we have students who are receiving counseling services in the Woburn Public Schools who have attempted suicide, have talked about attempting suicide, whose parents have reported that they have attempted suicide. And these are things that we have to take very seriously. Yesterday morning, you called me at about 10:45 to report that via our BARC system, a student was identified as in need of assistance. And there we were at 11 a.m. on a Sunday, reaching out to the principal of the school, Kendra reaching out to the parent to make sure that the child had assistance at home, and that we would be following up with that child today when he or she came to school. our student, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Support networks and treatment access. Most students reported that they are able to, that they do have a coping strategy to manage their stress. So that means they're building pathways and skills to help manage their own stress, as well as having relationships with a teacher at school. Right now, it looks like more than 50% of our students do feel like they are connected to at least one adult at school, which is wonderful, but that also does mean that there's about, say, anywhere from 35-40% of our students who still need that connection to an adult within the building. And most reportedly, students do report that they have a connection at home and someone to talk to at home. And then in terms of managing their mental health, the graph farthest to the left are the students who are currently taking medication to manage their emotional health, which is wonderful that students are able to access that, particularly now, and I know that can be harder and harder to access right now.
And in professional development, I continuously instruct that one or two meaningful adults in a school community in a child's life can be exactly what is needed to get them through. We have concerted efforts going on in the district so that adults are creating meaningful relationships with kids. At some of our schools, we're doing what's called silent mentoring or relationship mapping. It has two names. And in that system, the faculty and staff of the school receive the names of all of the children in the school. And each faculty or staff member is asked to circle or highlight the name of the child or children with whom they feel that they have meaningful relationships. And this can be paraprofessionals and teachers, administrators, custodians, it doesn't matter. There's an adult in the school who knows and cares about this student, and they feel that they can communicate at a higher level. At the end of that exercise, what the principal then gets is a list that has the list of kids that were not highlighted. And then we can make a concerted effort via our adjustment counselors, our teachers, and our staff to create relationships in the school building with these students so that they have someone that they can communicate with when stress is high or needs are great.
So these are school adjustment counselors. Every building throughout the district has at least one school adjustment counselor. The Malcolm White has 2 adjustment counselors, and the high school has 3 school adjustment counselors, one of which who's dedicated to the BRIGHT program, which is our bridge to transitioning resilient youth, which supports students who are transitioning back from extended absences. It can be extended absences due to anything, but it quite often is due to mental health supports. And this is separate from other social workers or other programming in the building. These are our school adjustment counselors for, as Mike already mentioned, that any student across Woburn Public Schools can access.
Yeah. And you'll note that the Malcolm White this year now has 2 adjustment counselors. Fortunately, through Title I and through your Decisions Committee, we have been able to apply additional support there where it's been much needed.
So school adjustment counselors, what I'm going to share with you today is I'm going to share with you the data from the referral process. But I thought it was important to also highlight what school adjustment counselors do, because individual counseling is just a piece of what a school adjustment counselor's day looks like. They do provide goal-focused, individualized treatment for students, but they also do things systematically throughout the school. They help support positive behavior initiatives, school culture and climate. Our elementary school adjustment counselors do social emotional learning lessons in the classrooms, character trait months. They help support teachers by providing consultation and professional development, as well as the building administrators. They provide crisis management. Any one of us can have a very bad day, and for young people, sometimes that means immediate support. They create safety plans for students. They write student success plans. They communicate with outside practitioners, parents. They run therapeutic groups, whether that be at the elementary level, lunch bunches, at the older levels. It can be a group on healthy relationships or youth and loss. They also provide resources and referrals for students outside of school. Adjustment counselors do help students within the school day, but oftentimes students and families need supports outside of school, which could mean referrals for outside counseling, any type of like food assistance, service, anything that you can think of that a school adjustment counselor might help support the family with that goes beyond the school day.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In addition, they do meet with me every other week, but then they also receive bi-weekly clinical supervision. So that's a wonderful opportunity for our school adjustment counselors because they get clinical level supervision, which is to really address targeted therapeutic needs and supports and mental health issues that students might be experiencing with a clinician outside of school. And they do a lot of like professional development around those needs and those services.
So through clinical supervision, where we have students who have really significant high needs cases, and we have some adjustment counselors who are very experienced and some who are very new, that they have the ability to go to a very experienced person who does clinical work and get ideas and methodologies that will help bring the students back to being connected to learning and their learning activities in school. I should also add that not on this list of responsibilities, something that we're working on now, is our clinicians becoming part of a critical incident response team here in the public schools. So Mrs. Stinson and I and a whole group of people are working on the development of a plan that has our clinicians ready and available when there are major incidents in schools other than their own. So we will have go teams and a whole comprehensive document for you, hopefully before the end of the year.
So the new online referral form is 1 week old today. So this right here, this data right here, some of them are this is total percentage increase, including the ones that have not been entered yet. So some of them, though, as I mentioned before, that historically it was a paper copy, or that these numbers right here are included in this data. So it's compared to a year ago in October of 2020 to October right now. These are the percent increase at each building in terms of their referrals for counseling services with school adjustment counselors. So you can see that almost everyone had a very significant increase in the number of referrals. And the reason why the Goodyear it has an NA there is because the clinician is new and she did not have that data. She just had the caseload list from last year, so she couldn't give me an exact number of what the number was in October of last year. But these are the elementary referrals, and these are the middle and high school counseling referrals from October of 2020 to October now. The only school that had a decrease was Kennedy Middle School, and that was a difference of about 2 students. And then the high school had our most significant increase in number of referrals.
And I think that this is reflective of 2 things. I mean, last year our kids were in school half the time. 2 separate Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday groups. Some kids virtual. And now with everyone back, and the academic expectations are high, and their connection over the last year was less. So there's a lot of stress in the learning environments that are taking place for both our teachers and for our students as well.
And the other piece of that too is that right now, if any of you are aware, outside it's really hard to get therapeutic support outside of school right now. So a lot of those issues that students might be facing, when they walk in the school building, they're our students, we take care of them, and we're going to see those regardless of whether or not someone has an outside practitioner to meet with. So I think that might be another factor for why we're also getting an increase in referrals, because it's harder to find a therapist outside of school as well. So this is not comparative data, but these are the number of risk assessments that the school adjustment counselors have done thus far as of last week. So risk assessments are when there's a concern about a student's safety, whether that be self-injury or suicidal ideation. So these are the numbers at each of the levels, and I just combined them. Yep.
Drum roll.
So overall, across the district, there was a 95.8% increase in referrals from October of 2020 to October of 2021.
This doesn't include the good year because we didn't have the data. So
Yeah.
we very well could have traversed the 100% mark in 1 year.
And this is just a slide, the BRIGHT program. That program helps to support students transitioning back into the building. And so although I didn't have her numbers included in referral data, I wanted to highlight that the BRIGHT program and Erin Merrill at the high school is supporting more students this year. She started the school year with more students than she had in previous years. There are a total of 20 BRIGHT alumni at the high school. And she's reporting that there's a significant reliance on the program, or that kids are coming back more frequently, checking in more, and using that as a support, more so than in past years as the school year has gotten started.
And the BRIGHT program also, aside from returns from hospitalizations and other reintegrations that take place at the high school level, this BRIGHT program can also be used for students who are returning to school or reintegrating from having a head injury or concussion as well.
So far, as of Friday, the counseling referrals, no, I think about half of them have been inputted, so we still have some time to put in, or we still have a need to put in, particularly the high school referrals. Those are the ones that we had. I think there was almost 100 referrals that need to be inputted into this data. But what I know just from this 1 week of having this information is that the highest grade that was referred at the elementary level was 4th graders, followed by 1st grade and then kindergarten. And then at the high school, I know that sophomores and seniors were the most referred thus far.
When we look at the reasons that the students have for receiving counseling in school, I think sometimes you can look at these and you could think, well, are these school issues? Anything that takes a child away from his or her learning is a school issue. And some of these things that are pervasive in their lives outside of school are things that we must address inside of school if they're going to be connected to learning.
If you look at, now I do know that this actually was updated because I did look at it today, but of all the referrals that have been put in, 50%, it's now 50% are related to anxiety. There have been 50% of the referrals that have been put in so far have been related to anxiety. At the younger grades, we're seeing a lot more behavior. So I can see that a number one reason at the elementary level is for behavior. And then the third highest is relationship issues, and then family dynamics. Of all the students that have been referred, we know that about almost 27% have a mental health diagnosis, and about 20% are managing grief and loss, which, as we know, when students experience grief and loss, they can experience depression, anxiety, and behavior.
And when you see that, mental health diagnosis, obviously it's so important that our children and our young adults are receiving services in school, but it's also important that they're receiving the attention and the services that they need outside of school. And via the William James service and via the Children's Behavioral Health Initiative, our clinicians have done very, very well to, when students are identified, work with parents to make sure that they're getting those supports outside of school so that folks are available when school is not in session, and so that they can hopefully have these things that are impacting their abilities to learn and have healthy relationships be ameliorated as quickly as possible. On the demographic side of things here in the Woburn Public Schools, not that economically disadvantaged requires any a counseling service, but I just want to point out that our families from 2018 until now, the number of families who are experiencing challenges are growing, and I think that you all know that, not just from what you see and hear in our meetings, but also from what you see and hear out in the community. So from 2018 until today, you see significant increase in children who are economically disadvantaged. So this means that we have families who are struggling for food, for clothing, for places to live. We're on record right now, we have 41 students who are homeless, another 20 plus who are in foster care. And these are the kids that we're spending a lot of our time with because when things aren't the way that they're supposed to be in their lives, learning becomes a secondary and maybe not as important of a thing to them. And so our relationships with them are really, really important. And as you know, our children and young adults who don't speak English in the Woburn Public Schools have significantly grown from 2016 until today. You notice a small drop in 2021, but we are back to over 400 students who are English learners. We've enrolled between 55 and 60 new English learners to school just between the first day of school and today. And some of these kids are coming to us with alarming stories of how they got, into Woburn and the challenges that they faced. And one thing that I'm happy to report is that via the program language line that we have, where we get on-the-spot translation services, because the language line was they work in the medical field, and that's why they were developed. When the parents agree to have services administered this way, if I'm speaking another language and Kendra is speaking English, we can have the interface of the translator on the speakerphone right here. And so for the first time in my career, I can say that my district is able to provide behavioral health services to children who don't speak English whenever they need it, because of the interface of the on-the-spot translation service. That's not just for goals-based counseling. That could be a non-English speaking student who is having a crisis right now and needs acute treatment, and he or she can get that now in school because of that technological implement. And we're really proud of that, and we thank the committee for supporting its implementation this year. We'll now take any questions, thoughts, comments, or concerns.
All right, it's a lot of heavy data, so let's just take one breath. Okay. Mr. Kissel.
On the student data collection and monitoring page, you had mentioned that it gets filled out when somebody leaves the classroom, or, okay, so when is that filled out and by who?
So the teacher will fill it out as soon as he or she can.
Okay.
So the student's not in the class, obviously, as soon as the teacher can break away from teaching. The way that we set it up, the form can be completed in about 60 seconds.
Okay.
So if the student is going down to the office, so they could call and say, I'll fill it out later. But we within about a day, we should have that data recorded.
Okay.
Yep.
And you had also mentioned that each school was able to kind of do their own?
Yeah. Well, the principals have the licensure to make it fit their building. It's different at the middle schools than it is at the high schools. The elementary schools, as it is right now, all 7 elementary schools all have the same form.
Okay.
But if a principal wanted to add a different field for something that was specific that he or she was seeing, they can. It doesn't, it just gives them more information to work with when they want to segregate their data.
So how does that skew your data if it's...
It doesn't. When we're talking about the broad brush things like anxiety, depression, conduct, trauma, we can see those, in different, under different headings. Kendra's, an expert at that.
And we can also, if a student hasn't been referred for counseling, and you see a student's leaving the class a significant amount of time, you can say, hey, has anyone checked in with that kid? Can we get them connected to someone?
Okay.
So.
All right. Let's keep moving along here. On selected YRBS data 2021 page, I didn't see the comparison. You had Middlesex League up on the other page, Woburn, but down here. So how do our numbers on the...
When they when you look at the YRBS, they give us selections, and some of the selections that they give are our middle school and our high school combined. There's a separate report that's a Middlesex region report. So there's 2 separate reports. We just pulled 4 panels off of 2, pretty comprehensive documents just to talk about mental health. There's also questions about the impact of COVID. There's questions about safety, like wearing a helmet when you ride a bike type questions, alcohol and drug use, sexual behavior, and things like that. So it's a pretty comprehensive report, but those were just 4 selected panels for talking about the mental health and wellness of our kids in general.
And on the selected, a couple pages later, selected YRBS data 2021, you mentioned it's prescribed medications. Is a question ever self-medication?
Yeah, that's in the drugs and alcohol section.
Okay.
They talk about, alcohol I can tell you is the most used.
Yeah.
The marijuana, and then prescription medications. And you could see the difference in, I think they split it up not only by grade, but they also split it up by demographic, like your nationality, males, females, right?
Gender queer students,
Yeah.
Male, female.
And we can see there, from there, Chris, we can see in that data areas that our clinicians now need to focus attention because we have it in our hands. Absolutely.
And then on the reporting piece, who the kids feel comfortable talking to, a parent, a teacher, an adult, or a school. I forget the term used, but what's the reporting requirement for our staff? Obviously, we can't require a parent to report anything, but on our staff, if they go to a staff and say, I felt like I want to do this, whatever, something destructive, at what point does that teacher or staff member have to kind of break the code, I guess, if you want?
Well, they should always break
Okay.
that. And if a student ever comes to a teacher and says that they are feeling like they want to hurt or harm themselves, I will tell you that in my experience, although it's only been 2 months here at Woburn Public Schools, historically, staff always report that, and they should always report that. That actual particular question is not asked by the YRBS, but they do ask specifically if students have a connection or a relationship with staff members, and it was about 50%. It might have been at the middle school. I think it was only about 40-something% that felt connected to someone at school, but not specifically around disclosing self-injury or suicidal ideation.
Okay. All right, that's all I have so far. Thanks.
Dr. Wells?
Yeah, a couple of things. I know at the middle school, and you mentioned about 40% having a connection. I think at the Kennedy Middle School, probably a couple of years ago, that was one of the Kennedy Middle School's priorities, was to make people feel connected. And I'm wondering, do you see that in the data, or maybe you don't? Maybe they have to adjust how they're doing it. So.
And I'm certainly not surprised that over the last 2 years, students do not feel connected to someone at school. So I think that the data is probably significantly increased because of that. But we have been in talks. I've been talking with Jimmy Duran and the middle school principals about bringing back middle school sports or middle school clinics to get kids after school having something to do. And we've certainly been talking about the programming at the high school and the middle school for LGBTQ+ populations to help them have a safe place and supports for them. And having clubs or some, even just safe zone stickers to support students and have them feel like they have a safe place and connected to the school and having a person there to be connected to.
And I forget how often they do this report, but do we have historical data to say what's happening?
They do it every 2 years, and I've been here for two cycles, so I can go back and forth between the two, but they don't always ask, Dr. Wells, the same questions on both. So there's only certain areas with which we can look and see. The report is more of a compare. It tells us where we are, but it compares us against other districts that are around us. And we can see differences in answers where the socioeconomics are different. And Kendra and Diane, Mrs. Stinson and Mrs. Ivester are doing work right now about the sexual health of our kids, and they're using data from the YRBS to help drive our decisions. And they certainly have presented some really powerful data on how we compare, and we can actually see the impact of Mrs. Ivester's work over the last 2 years in that data that came from the YRBS, and we'll hope to share that with you in the future.
And I know you haven't talked about everything you do in Pittsburgh, but one of the things that struck me was the middle school suicide attempts and so forth. So I don't know if you have anything that you've instituted or thinking of instituting, maybe just describe that a little bit.
Yeah, so we already have the NAN project come to the high school, which is a peer model suicide prevention program. They've gone into our 9th grade health classes, so those students would have been in 8th grade last year. But also we've talked to them about coming to the middle school as well, and we've talked to the middle school health teachers and them providing targeted support around suicidal ideation and support in our home.
And we do Signs of Suicide and other programs, but the thing about the NAN project is what they do is they train students to be there for students, because what they found was that a student is more likely to go to another student when they're in distress than they are to go to an adult. So they have a mentoring program to train students to be the student to receive this information and get it to an adult who can make a difference. The NAN project started, they started in a school district maybe about 5 years ago, and now they're in 56 school districts across the state. So they've done a nice job.
And, indications are that we're not that much different than every other community. So I'm assuming other communities are developing programs similar. Is there some kind of network where you're working with so that, you don't spin your wheels and redevelop something that somebody already, and they don't do something that you...
Yeah, there's actually I'm going to get the acronym wrong, but there is a group that was started by a clinician in Methuen, and it's a network where they have monthly meetings and they share all their resources, and there's a board, and I attended it in past districts I've been in, and I'm a member now for Woburn Public Schools, because you're exactly right. Why reinvent the wheel if there's already wonderful things out there? And it's a resource sharing network for that purpose. But you're absolutely right that Woburn is experiencing very similar patterns across the state, and I would gather across the nation right now, in terms of increased anxiety, depression, connections, kids lagging skills, both behaviorally and socially, emotionally, and academically. They're all going hand in hand.
And students who need acute care and brief residential stays, there's no beds. And students who need access to a psychiatrist right now can't see a psychiatrist for 6 to 8 weeks. It's without access on the outside of school, these things are going to play out inside of school.
And since, your staff is on the front lines, so, for us, seeing it from afar, the numbers are shocking.
Yeah.
But, I'm more concerned is like, are they saying, oh, we're missing a lot when they look at these numbers, or this is, we're kind of aware of what's happening and, we're aware of it, I guess. It's different frontline people versus people removed, so it's kind of...
I think both teachers and our counseling staff are all feeling and seeing this data.
So they're aware of it and they're working.
Yep.
I think the message that we would like for the committee to have is that 4 years ago we had counselors. They were arranged by school, but they were not arranged in a system. And now we have a system to see our students, track our students, provide our students with services, and they also must record data on the success of their implementation of the methodologies so that we can see that they're working as we go forward. Sometimes, like when I've done a lot of program development, and when you develop a good program, once you have it up and running, the best thing you can do is to continue to add to it, as Ms. Stinson has here with new data tracking, and to enhance the capabilities of those people who are doing the work. They're very strong. It's a very strong group. I think they're very good at what they do.
And then the student data collection and monitoring. So who monitors and how often?
So as far as that spreadsheet goes, the principal has access, the vice principal or assistant principal has access, the adjustment counselor has access, Kendra has access, I have access. And so they are continuously monitoring. Now, if something comes up today, somebody tells me something about a student that something happened, we might go and just check on that student because we heard something today. The principals are, Jessica in particular had said it on the principals meeting last week that, she uses this very frequently and how helpful it is to identify, things in her school. So Kendra will consult with principals and clinicians to be sure that it's being accessed regularly.
Yeah, 'cause we're collecting the data to be useful, but I'm not sure whether people have time. And okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Chisholm?
This is alarming to me at least, at the very least. Especially as a mom, this would just scare the heck out of me. But even just as a human, this is just really upsetting to say the least. The suicide part really, really scares me. And so when the kids fill these out, because they're done without anybody knowing who's filling them out.
Correct.
So we don't really have a way of knowing if someone takes it seriously or not. And I just think that insurance coverage also is something that, even if you have health insurance, to even get, as you said, you can't get appointments.
Right.
You can't get somebody the help that they need. So it's a problem at that level too. So even people that could afford to send their kid to get the help, it's not there for them. I mean, that bothers me tremendously, but that's just feeding to another one. But and I just think that the whole COVID piece is what's adding a tremendous amount of anxiety and stuff to kids, to parents, families alike. I mean, I'm sure these kids at home, they're faced with coming to school, they have to wear masks, get used to it, but it's still something that they might not feel comfortable with. And then now it's being told, you might have to get vaccinated, and that's like a whole other level that parents are not going to want this. It's going to be a fight, and it's going to be something that we're going to have to watch tremendously, because I think that's going to bring a lot of angst, us against them, within the school district itself. And it's just adding so much stress to everybody, everywhere, and I think we need to all take a step back on that, but that's for everybody else to decide. But I think that in homes, there's a lot of pressure too. Parents haven't been working their normal life, so they have daddy or mommy might be set up in the corner dining room, and kids trying to do stuff or can't get to sports because they're not there. This is just compounding everything. And it's scary. This is really alarming. It should be to everybody. So I just hope that we can help these kiddos out as best we can. I mean,
And you'll see that in the William James interface report. It's the first time they were really fast at connecting, and right now they're having struggles themselves because the number of referrals is coming in. They don't have the staffing to move.
And prior to the pandemic, anxiety and depression were on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
We knew that from, contributing factors of social media, different parenting styles, kids being stressed about school, and those are the things that kids were identifying, particularly with social media, political climate, access and exposure to news outlets, and being just overwhelming.
I know there's a lot of pressure, like the senior kids trying to start with colleges and that level. And sometimes kids can actually say things that they don't really mean, but it's just like, oh my God, my mother's going to kill me, or I'm going to die if I don't get into college. And they could relate it that way, but so it can be misinterpreted. But we just want to make sure that we're watching out for kids that just have these. And it's concerning to me. And I know that, and for the past 2 years, a lot of these kids probably have not had a teacher to have a bond with. And that was their bond that they, got to alleviate some of their anxiety by going to school, seeing a teacher, and being able to smile at this teacher and see the teacher smile back at them. And I think that that's something we need to be cognizant and start paying a lot of attention to this stuff. Because these kiddos, as we know and we've seen, they're hurting.
And the COVID-related questions on the YRBS, there was a question that was along the lines of disruption to you. How has the disruption of your schedule impacted your life? And the kids really responded that it was stressful to have lost their sports and to lost their socialization, the things that they were, so accustomed to every day. And that was obviously last spring.
Emotionally, that's what kids attach themselves to, is their friends at school, and when they're told they couldn't get together and they couldn't be with more than one other person, and that's just, we need to really pay attention, folks, because it's not going to be pretty. It scares me.
The YRBS also showed that about 25 or 27% of students had experienced loss due to COVID, like a death, grief and loss due to COVID. 25% of students reported that.
And loss of job, loss of,
And then when they lost someone, they weren't allowed to be together like we did years ago. and you couldn't hang out in your basement with your friends and grieve and be and hugging and holding hands and doing the stuff that we need to do to get through those awful, awful times. But, okay, thank you.
Ms. Lipson?
Echoing a lot of what's been said, and just a thank you for the emotion that you showed in your questions as well. And I think we all feel that looking at some of this data and these numbers. I guess I have a few different questions. When we talk, Ms. Stinson, you just mentioned that we've been seeing increases in anxiety, in all sorts of manifestations over the last several years. How do we see our current numbers fitting into that longer trend? I mean, we compared with October of 2020, but obviously that was an outlier in a lot of ways as well. Looking sort of over the last, say, 5, even 10 years, is what we're seeing right now a significant increase in terms of what that trend would have been? Is October 2020 the outlier? Is October 2021 the outlier? Are they both outliers? I mean, in terms of where that line was headed?
Yeah, I guess that is hard to answer definitively.
Yeah.
Just because thinking back to October last year, students started school 2 weeks later, so that could have impacted the data. There's many factors that could impact it, so I guess I can't 100% give an answer to that. But I guess as I'm thinking about this and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about how heavy a lot of that information is, I also just want to say that what we also know about students and development is that with neuroplasticity and brain development, there's also an opportunity for students to build pathways, build these skills again. And we know that works with connections and relationships with people and adults. And we are back at school, and we have wonderful people here in Woburn Public Schools that are working very hard to do that. So I just want to remind everyone that although this is very heavy, it's also an opportunity to build those connections and help students learn these skills and develop those lagging skills, both academically, behaviorally, emotionally, socially. So I would love to tell you that next year I can come back here and help that data move in a better direction. And I hope that that's the case, but I also think that there are a lot of factors. Like, I know that one of the main reasons why we thought that some of this data was going in that way was because of social media and exposure to things that none of us in this room necessarily have control over. So I'm hoping that I can come back and tell you that we've improved that.
Mr. Lipset, one thing just to say is before, there was a time with which there would be an adjustment counselor who had a caseload, and the caseload was 12, 13, and those were my kids that I saw all the time. And somebody else needs to see an adjustment counselor. Well, my caseload is full, and that was the way it was. Now, it's hard to compare.
Right.
Pre-2018, when there was an adjustment counselor who had 13 or 14 kids, and that was it. And then maybe some random issues that would come up, whereas now it's a systemic thing where kids are coming in and going out, and some kids are staying and some kids aren't. And then, as Kendra alluded to, every crisis is an opportunity for growth and understanding for everyone, not just children, but for us. And sometimes it takes a crisis for us to get better or learn. And that's what we teach in TCI, and that's certainly what is happening through Match, 100%. And they're really doing a great. I know that the data stinks to look at that, but they're doing a great job, and our kids are getting services. Right?
Yeah, I also don't want to let this pass without commending the two of you and everyone who's working with you on building these systems that are giving us the insight that we have. Because not having this information, we would be even more in the dark than we are. Right. So having access to this is I can't call it wonderful because it's troubling data, but it's certainly better than if we didn't. And so I don't want to let this pass without thanking you both for the work that you've done on that. we're talking about adjustment counselors and caseloads. How is our staff doing right now? I mean, this is, I see it where I work. Everyone is burnt out. Everyone is sort of at wit's end. Referrals are up. Nobody has time to really process a lot of what's going on. For support staff, for guidance staff, for our adjustment counselors, for our behavioral staff, I mean, are we seeing signs of staff burnout? Are we in need potentially of looking at additional staff to try to get us over the hump? Does that staff exist?
One thing we'll answer kind of pieces here. For one of the pieces, clinical supervision and support.
So right now with Melissa Plowman, who provides the clinical supervision, she's running small groups to help support our adjustment, not just our adjustment counselors, but she also supports guidance, social workers across the district. She supports the clinical staff throughout the district with that targeted intervention support. So when cases come, she can help support and give suggestions and feedback and intervention strategies. So that's, and it's also an opportunity for when in the clinical field, having that supervision is part of your training and part of what you do when you are feeling overwhelmed. So that's a wonderful piece that is in place for our staff. I will say that I think everyone is feeling pretty stressed and overwhelmed and experiencing the, just layers of tiredness that you get when you work in this profession. No one wants to see students struggle or, needing to make up some of those lagging skills. So I think that people are feeling it, both clinical staff and teachers, but I'm hopeful that, we're helping to support them to the best of our ability to help them make growth themselves and stay on track and supporting our students.
I think we have one clinician at the high school alone who's taken in 40 or 50 referrals or something.
59 as of Friday. I think it might
59
be 60.
referrals to one individual counselor at the high school. Now, I think our staff is extremely resilient across the district, and I think that they're amazing. But for 59 referrals to come in, that means 59 people found 59 things that are alarming in the learning environment that needed to go forward. And so what that tells me is that the stress that you're seeing in the student population is certainly being felt by the people who are doing the right thing by referring these kids to the people who can help them.
Yeah.
We hear, like anecdotally, that people are feeling the stress of this because kids are coming in and their academic skills are a year behind or half a year behind where they are expecting them to be. And so work is stressful for everybody across the board. And I think you probably see it, Bill Rico, as well, right? And so I think that's what we're experiencing.
And just again, trying to sort of get a grasp on what we're seeing on the ground. I know you're still sort of combing through a lot of the data you're collecting. Are we seeing any beginnings of any trends in terms of, we talk about manifestations of self-harm or suicidal ideations and things like this. In terms of things like absenteeism rates, in terms of violent altercations in school, substance abuse issues, are we starting to get a sense of trends this year? What are those trends looking like? Is it too early to tell?
I think school avoidance and truancy is definitely there. The high school referrals haven't been in, so aren't in yet, so I don't have a ballpark number on substance use, but I do know that there are a good number of students who have been referred for that in particular. So I think that some of that information will come in a little more clear in time. But definitely truancy and school avoidance are trends.
Nice. Just one last question. So we talked about the translation services that are being used to provide services to students who aren't able to speak English at that level, and that's an amazing thing. Do we have support staff in the system or in individual buildings who are also on top of that multilingual? And is that something that you perceive currently as a need given the translation services available?
I think that when it comes to multilingual, the one thing is we know that our top 3 languages other than English that are spoken are Haitian, Creole, Portuguese, and Spanish, but there's another 30 languages out there. So sometimes, it is great to have our bilingual staff, and we probably can never have enough. But the language line aspect is now, the number of languages that we can have on the spot is into the, I think, 100 to 200 languages or something like that. So it really is just being felt through the system now that this is available, and I know that the superintendent has taken a lot of positive feedback from principals and people who are like, this is amazing. And so we really don't know what how positive of an impact it's going to be, but I'll tell you right now, it's good.
Yeah, and certainly I'm not saying as an either or,
Yeah,
but
right.
as a both.
Well, certainly
it is an incredible
face-to-face, somebody speaking your language is so important, as we know from the work of Adriana, and now her assistant will start on November 1st, as Ms. Cormier will report in SSA. But yeah, we'll be back when we have more information, certainly probably as we look at our budgetary request for fiscal year 2023. The things that Kendra thinks that are going to be expensive, but worth it.
That's all I have to say. Again, I thank you both so much for what you've done.
If I just very briefly on the language line, that's being used by our nurses to communicate to families as it relates to COVID-type questions, our secretaries with registration, our assistant principals in different scenarios. So it's not limited to just a specific subset of
Special ed.
Special education. Teachers are using it, so it's getting amazing reviews. So just to be clear.
Ms. Cormier?
I think this is all great data that we can use to inform future programming, interventions, as I will report into my SSA minutes. I'm also interested, I don't know what the current enrollment is at the high school, or it was when this was done, like 880 students who responded. There's probably at least 500 more students that did not respond. And even then, those that chose to respond might not have done so accurately because they might not feel comfortable. And so there's
Right.
information that's not captured,
Right.
So this is the minimum, potentially, of what we're looking at. And as you've always said, we're unable to quantify how many incidents, whether it's suicidal ideation, self-harm, panic attacks, whatever it is, because of the things that we have in place. So we can't pat ourselves on the back, unfortunately, but we know that we are, at least there is some good that is happening. I really appreciate the clinical supervisions that they're doing. I think it's so important for collaboration, sort of the insight, but also it's just important for them to process. What they're taking in all of this. They're taking in all of the struggles that the kids are having in it, and they need to also talk about that and their own things. But I just think it's great that we're reviewing this data, intervening potentially before a student even knows that they have a maladaptive behavior, and that's clearly, as you mentioned, from Sunday. So I just think this is it's good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mulrennan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. Welcome to Woburn, Kendra. The impact, I did get an opportunity to see this presentation through SSA, and it was, again, to some of the people here, it was kind of like pushed you back in your seat when you saw some of the numbers and what they've collected over the time here. But I think, to Dr. B's point, a while back, Mike, you came before us and you said the caseload is killing our people. Our adjustment, and that was the caseloads. And to see this progress, that this particular area of behavioral mental health for our students and our families in Woburn is moving forward. And I think you just about touched the tip of the iceberg, Mike. You almost said budget. I'll say it. Because in my notes here, I put money well spent. And again, it's collected data. You're seeing all this data, all these figures. Kids are having problems, and we hire people to help them. Well, we're going to have to come back and hire more people, according to this. So I think you're proving to us that this was money well spent over time. Again, a need was there. We addressed the need, and now we're addressing stronger needs in different areas to get more money to put it in the right places for the right need. And another point I wanted you to make, because I did see this presentation, but I didn't ask it that day. A lot of counseling is going on. A lot of players helping out these kids. Where's the layer that Michael's mother and father, or Michael's parent, or Michael's guardian is told that the following steps have been taken? Michael left school, went and saw the adjustment counselor, was having kind of a little meltdown that day, and the assistant principal knows about it. At what point, is there any parental involvement or parental information passed on to them. So with the supports that, you're all giving our students in the school building, hopefully are carried back to the household. I don't know if you can answer that tonight or you want to try.
So one of the components of Match is to try to get the family involved in really what's going on. It's not like just a school thing. There's more to it. That William James referral system and the Children's Behavioral Health Initiative and getting folks involved on the outside is a staple of our work. We spell that out in our behavioral health guide to get and connect with those families. And generally speaking, I mean, the families do consent to services and they do have regular contact with the clinicians. Sometimes what the students say to the clinician is very confidential, but some things can be shared, right?
Yep, at the elementary level, all parents would be notified if there's if they are referred to an adjustment counselor. The parents usually involved before the adjustment counselor gets on board. At the middle and high school, students do have a little bit more confidentiality, but if a student is, if it's to the point where they're leaving class all the time or there's any type of crisis, then parents would be involved. And I would say more often than not, I would say very rarely is there a complete parents not knowing that they're meeting with a clinician at school. That would be very rare. They most often know.
And to take a little one step further, because obviously there's follow-up. The student was addressed with needs and, saw XYZ counselor on these dates and things, and like you say, maybe they never return again. That's wonderful. But in the event that, is there a check-in with the parent that you're going to check up on the staff that they're doing their thing? That's Ms. Kendra's job. So is there some other box in there that your counselors checked in with the family unit and said, are you practicing what we're trying to practice here in the school building for the sake of everybody involved? I'd just like to know that.
I would say that if the student has risen to the level where they are, like in terms of the initial form that Mike shared, where the number of times out of class and all that, the administration, the guidance counselor, there's probably several people involved in that student's life, which is why, and there's, I would just say that there's communication home based if a student's skipping class and is truant or getting kicked out of class, all of those things would be communicated. And as I said, if a student is experiencing something, there is a level of confidentiality. So if there is something where they do go down one time, or if they have a fight with a boyfriend or a girlfriend and they see their counselor one time, there wouldn't necessarily be a phone call home about that. Okay. So it really depends on the scenario and the situation. So it's hard to say like 100% yes, 100% no. It really depends on the situation. But if a student is experiencing multiple incidents of infractions or clinical or rising to a level of crisis on a regular basis, there's 100% communication home around those types of things, or anything that has to do with safety.
Right.
We have to break confidentiality when it comes to someone hurting themselves, someone hurting someone else, someone hurting them, bullying issues. Those things would be communicated.
And last point would be, I just really like the idea of, the meaningful adult in the building.
Yeah.
We all know they're there. And if you can capture that idea and capture that data, recognize that and, build on that program, I think hopefully your job will get a little bit easier anyway. So, again, appreciate the previous presentation as well as tonight's great format. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Any more? Yes, Mr. Lipset.
Just one.
That's okay.
That occurred to me during that conversation. Do we have a way of tracking and do we understand at this point any trends in terms of 51A referrals right now?
Very individualized.
Okay.
Very boutique, hopefully. And so I don't have any big numbers now. We have had a few, but nothing pervasive.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I remember a time early on when I joined the school committee that we would not talk about this in public. And so I think that the key to mental health awareness is to be transparent about the state of our kids. And he gave us a lot of powerful data. It sounds like we need more school adjustment counselors in the budget. But I think, I keep thinking about if there's 13% of kids that are in serious pain, that means that there's parents that are also in serious pain. And we as a community need to respond as a whole. Just like when a child has a mental health issue, the family has to respond. The community has to respond in order to really truly lift these kids back up to where they're supposed to be. So that being said, is there anything else?
Madam Chairman, Could we get a copy of the YRBS? I don't think we got the full committee. The subcommittee
Yes.
might have got the copy.
Yeah, I have one.
But if we could
Yes.
give it to the full committee, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wells. But I really think all the work that you're doing, it sounds like everybody is strained under this, what we call a crisis, and I'm just so appreciative of our staff, teachers, school adjustment counselors, BCBA, special education, everybody is rowing very hard in the canoe. So thank you very much for this presentation. Dr. Crowley, did you want to add anything?
No, I just want to thank Ms. Stinson. I think you saw what she's brought to the Woburn Public Schools in a short amount of time. And so thank you for your work, and of course, Dr. Baldessari's leadership in this really, really important area. We talk about you have to Maslow before you can bloom. So, and I think that's what we're talking about here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thank you.
Would the committee grant me a small recess for just 1 minute?
Take a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Thank you. Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
We're
regular order of business.
Second. Okay, so we're back from recess. And we're back, so we're going to do superintendent's goals, and I just want to forewarn the committee, or not forewarn, but inform them that we're not actually going to do the goals tonight. Dr. Crowley was just thinking of passing them out, and then we will do it the next meeting because we know this is significant importance. So, Dr. Crowley, if you want to just...
Sure, so genuinely just printed out a hard copy of my thinking as it relates to draft goals for this coming school year. As you all know, there's district goals, student learning goals, professional practice goals, which are embedded into this. I've also attached the superintendent rubric. The goals are listed, the district goal, a couple district goals, and then the professional practice and student learning goal, each with action items related to it. And I will be happy to share this with you digitally so that you can access the links that would be embedded in this as well. But I, again, thought that it might be prudent to give it to you in advance so then at the next meeting, I believe it's November 10th, to have this as an agenda item. And if people have any questions, comments, concerns that they want to bring up prior, by all means, I am, of course, ready, willing, and able to hear you at your convenience. So thank you.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Wells.
Professional practice goal. I was just looking at it. Looks more like a district the way it's written. I don't know if we could personalize it more.
Sure.
You take a look at it, but that's just sort of my first glance at it. Look more like a district goal than something for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can tell you that I am taking a class, like
Right.
I'm involved,
Yeah.
in, so I'll write it
Right.
to reflect that.
Yeah.
All right. And we'll have a chance to, really
Sure.
go after you. I'm just kidding. Get into the goals next time. All right, so those will be on the table, and I'll make sure to put those on the next agenda, and we can definitely do Dr. Crowley's goals for the public schools. All right, so subcommittee reports. Mrs. Chisholm, Finance.
If we met on October 20th here at the First Municipal Conference Room, in attendance was Patty McKinnon, Assistant Superintendent Bob Alcanada, and Dr. Michael Baldassari, Superintendent Dr. Matt Crowley, and School Committee Dr. Joe Mills and Pat Chisholm. Andrew dumped us for the Red Sox.
How's it doing?
Yeah.
So the warrants, warrant 1, 457, 078, 32, warrant 2, 262, 44212, warrant 3, 721, 2315, and warrant 4, 115, 19708. We viewed those, the list of bills are sent to us, and we submitted our questions, and we found those to be all in order, and we have a motion to approve.
So before we do that, so I just wanted to clarify, because we got clarification. Do we actually need to vote on the list of bills and the balance of accounts?
I don't think so.
I think you should.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay.
We should.
All right, just wanted to, because I was under the impression for the longest time that they didn't pay the bills until we voted on them, but that is not the
But
case.
that's that's not the
Yeah.
case. But hey,
Yeah, they're already paid, yeah. So I'll second that motion.
How long have you been?
20 years. Learn something new every day.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Chisholm. You're looking at me, and I'm looking at you, and I'm like, what? Okay. There's a motion.
Second.
Is there a discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes.
Make a motion to approve the balance of accounts.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, and the discussion that we had was there's a couple of coaches that have been paid from student activities accounts. The monies are collected and the coaches are paid through there, but there's some teams that have friends of that have the coaches' salaries paid from there. So we're just trying to figure out if there's a way that we could do it so that everybody's paid the same way. So we're going to have Athletic Director Jim Duran at the next meeting to just try to see if there's some way we can do this so that everybody's on the same page, and that works out. In the English department, there's a number of $4,000 that was taken for the bullseye that would be going into salaries, just for better, out of salaries, but next year for the budget process.
Correct. There's if I can give a little bit more explanation, there's a $4,000 in the budget for a student newspaper called Bullseye. That's actually a salary line item. We don't pay any salary there. That is for the publication of that, of the cost of the printing. So what we're going to do is we're going to just, with your permission, move that $4,000 into the English supply budget, and then we'll pay everything out of there. So we're not taking any money from the student newspaper, we're just condensing the line items. And then next year, we'll correct that line item to pay the student newspaper out of an expense line item rather than a salary. It doesn't make sense.
Quick question on that.
Sure, Mr. Kissel.
So you said there's no salary. That 4,000 doesn't reflect the salary, but is there a stipend for that position?
No.
It's a class.
No, it's a class. There's no stipend. No.
Gotcha.
It's publication out of a class that students take during the day.
Oh, gotcha. All right.
It's a technical correction on the line item.
Yeah. No, I just
we need
curious.
Okay.
Okay, then we just talked about the lunch program, just having a supply challenge like every place else in the whole world. But right now we're running at a profit, but we're early in the year, but so far so good. And then we're just going to have Jimmy Durant come into finance and Dave Dunkley to update us on the cost of like redoing the library over and what that was, so we can. And we adjourned at 4:30.
Thank you, Ms. Chisholm. Great.
We're also going to have Mr. Dunkley talk about heating costs in case, we're going to see some unexpected increases.
Okay. Thank you,
Or
Dr. Wells.
expected increases right now.
Okay. Can we, curriculum and data trend, Mr. Lipset?
We have not yet met. We will hopefully be meeting before the next school committee.
All right, thank you. Personnel, Mr. Mulrennan?
Have not met.
All right, policy and safety, Mr. Kissel.
As the last meeting, everyone got the policy that we spoke of. So and that was now it's on the table. This meeting is supposed to be for discussion. So if anyone has any questions or anything on the policies that we did disseminate recently, this is the one, and then the next meeting would be to adopt. So we don't want to have a million questions then. If anyone has any questions on their packet that was sent out, I think there was a couple of updates as well.
Two additional
Yep.
that were not in the package, just a couple of, maybe about a week ago, you should have received.
So this is discussion time. Anybody?
Okay, so just for the public clarity, these are the policies that were brought to the school committee last meeting.
Last meeting, yeah.
You're taking them and putting them on the table tonight for a first reading, for a first discussion.
So according to the
Yeah,
policy, they were put on the table at the last.
They put on the table at the last meeting.
And then this would be any discussion.
Okay.
And then, depending on how the committee prefers, then the next meeting they would be eligible to be approved.
Okay, gotcha.
But if you wanted to wait on any of them, you certainly could.
Okay, understood.
I
Okay.
had
Thank you, Mr. Kissel.
maybe it's under correspondence, but I think, and we may have all received a correspondence about recess, using recess.
Yes, we have a correspondence, and Dr. Crowley does have a response for us.
Okay,
so
all
we
right,
can
good. I
do
wasn't
that.
sure if that's
No, absolutely.
to do with our policy,
I
so
will
we can.
address that at correspondence. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we will just address those policies next meeting. Okay, great. Sorry, I lost my thing. I guess the next one is SSA.
No,
Resources.
Capital Planning
Resources and capital planning, sorry. Resource and capital planning, Dr. Wells?
Yeah, we're still thinking about having a meeting.
Great, still thinking, okay.
Not too much pressure there,
Dr. Wells, all right. And SSA, Ms. Cormier, thank you.
We met on Friday, October 22nd, here in the committee room. Meeting was called to order at 11:02 a.m. In attendance were myself, Mr. Kissel, Mr. Mulrennan, Dr. Baldessari, Ms. Ryan, Ms. Stinson, and Julie Cotton from CPAC. Under SPED updates, there were a number of staffing updates. Notably, Renee Morgan, the new assistant director, has been incredibly helpful. We have a new social worker at the Joyce Middle School. This is a shift due to difficulty hiring psychologists. This person is able to provide counseling for students on IEPs. Ms. Ryan feels very good about staffing at this time. Those staffing needs features a school psychologist. This staffing is a significant problem, not just in Woburn. She hired an OT to replace a COTA, C-O-T-A, because the OT can also do assessments. There's a continued need for paras, as the needs of the students are very significant. She has started the hiring process for the 2 new BCBAs, and she is continuing to explore the need for the RBTs at the Shamrock. There were, as always, a number of professional development highlights, including Ross Green at the Kennedy Middle School GAIN program, Dot Lucci, inclusion expert, Melissa Orkin, Karen Janowski, Maureen Lacerte, a number of safety care trainings and certifications for pre-K and those with severe disabilities. There are numerous PD offerings on Election Day, 11/2, next Tuesday, including inclusion training by Dot Lucci and Jenny Dunkley. There'll be 2 Linda Mood Bell trainings over the next 6 weeks. We have over 30 educators already certified this year in Wilson Reading. Another cohort of 38 will be sent to Wilson Level 1, and then also one to Advanced Wilson in November. The Compass program may actually be run in Woburn, which will give us Wilson trainers within the district. Under program development, she is assessing changing needs following the pandemic, noting that every student has some degree of learning loss, but our students with disabilities have had exponential losses, and she's working hard to assess and address the needs adequately. We're increasing visibility and presence of the administrative staff in buildings, with Val Matthews working out of the Goodyear and a BCBA relocating to the Malcolm White. The program descriptions for the SPED programs have been drafted and are being reviewed by legal counsel. We're working with the New England Center for Children for a district-wide program review for all students on the autism spectrum, and specifically planning for the students in RISE to move up to the Joyce. Melissa Orkin is helping to collect data to appropriately assess language-based programming. There's additional staffing at the GAIN program, third grade. At the Goodyear, a new teacher and a new para. She's reviewing all the tech in the classrooms, adding overhead projectors as needed to be equitable and increase learning. We are adding sensory corners to all rooms in RISE, which have been very helpful. Osmo kits have been purchased. There's a lot of interactive pieces, and they work on iPads. Staff are being trained next Tuesday. Every OT will have them, as well as all RISE classrooms, and will increase as appropriate. These were piloted last spring with a terrific response. And additional assessment tools, 3 from Melissa Orkin, she would like integrated. They have been ordered, and those will be offered in training next Tuesday as well. Still a number of challenges. The transportation issues are slowly improving, but they do continue to be a challenge. She met with NRT about 2 to 3 weeks ago. The company is short 170 drivers. The SEAM contract specifically is short 30, and the monitor shortage continues in Woburn. Students in crisis with increased safety concerns due to being out of school and routines, those have been increased. COVID presenting significant staffing challenges, including staff absences. There's been an increased demand for assessment for Tier 1 and Tier 2 students due to learning loss, which at this point is being contracted out due to the shortage of staff. And there are shortages at the out-of-district programs, resulting in an inability to place students out of district and or provide services within the home, as people are not willing to do home visits. We are also in need of a STEP program for students from hospital discharge to return to school. There were a number of questions. Ms. Ryan did speak to the update of the KMS GAIN program. Ross Green was consulting with the staff weekly. The program has been moved to a different location. They have all new staff, and they're looking to meet the needs of the students in a different way, and we're hearing that the progress has been good. The staffing issues, it was noted that they are not so much a funding challenge, but as really more finding people to fill these roles. We had a question about out-of-district student inclusion in the district. Renee has been working hard to build relationships with the families and work with the administration to understand that these are our students. They're trying hard to change, track progress, avoid errors. There was consideration of installing email distribution lists, but this would be challenging due to privacy issues. Redeker does not allow addition to distribution lists with a flag like we would need, so perhaps Power Scholars can have more of an option. We heard from Kendra Simpson, the School Adjustment Counseling Services, and everything that was said tonight was covered during that. English language learners on 9/8, the EL Department Professional Development focused on the new WIDA 2020 standards and how to use them to plan and drive instruction. WIDA designs language development standards for early childhood and K-12 multi-language learners. New elementary EL progress report cards rolled out that directly matches the WIDA standards for linguistic proficiency and assessment versus using a specific grade to mark progress. Plan is to adopt this to be used at all grades going forward soon. This is also translated into Spanish, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole. Using Title III money, more National Geographic curriculum, the EL curriculum we use at each level, has been purchased for the 4 new EL teachers in the district. We have a number of new EL paras. New EL students in grades 1 through 5, we have 11, and the total number now is 49 EL, FEL at the Goodyear. And as of 10/22, WPS has 401 ELs and 127 FELs district-wide, which is up from 319 ELs from the beginning of the school year. Ms. Johnson created a shared Google Drive for all EL teachers to access compliance paperwork, EL folder documents, and assessment materials. This has made compliance piece much easier for all the teachers. She also met with Jody Levine from the Family Access Community Connections a couple weeks ago to see how we can help our EL families with students ages 0 to 8 with early learning, parent education programs, and resources within the community. Ms. Levine will be invited to attend an upcoming LPAC meeting. The district will soon post and hire a new adult EL teacher for parent education and English classes. This will be also under Title III and via Zoom. In social emotional learning, the NAN project, as mentioned recently, will be coming to did come to the 9th grade health classrooms on Wednesday, 10/8/13. The NAN project works to promote mental health awareness and suicide prevention programs for young people, including a peer-to-peer model. Currently planning dates and times for Respond Inc. to attend health classrooms in the months of October and November. Respond is is a program designed to help end domestic violence. They provide life-saving shelter, a crisis hotline, support services, training, and education. Respond will be educating our wellness classes on healthy and unhealthy relationships. The Respond support group is funded by the Shannon Lee Miera Foundation, which has been organized in memory of Shannon by her mom, Arlene. And the high school activities fair recruited students to be peer leaders for the Woburn High School Miera team to work with school community to provide healthy relationship education. The co-advisors are Lauren Bacardi and Diane Ivester. In November and December, there will be education for our Wellness 9 health and physical education students on understanding gender identity and sexual orientation. Woburn High social worker Dylan Scott and Wellness 9 health teacher Lori Duran collaborated to present and increase understanding to students. Elementary physical education started Connection Block this week and will be working on the theme, quote, Better Together, building SEL strategies and working together for grade 2. Wellness coordinator and wellness department head Atlas curriculum training took place during the month of October. There was incorporation of the 3 R's curriculum into the middle school and shared with elementary health educators. The introduction of the language line for counseling services, communication with parents for the school adjustment counselors, as we already discussed, coordinating counseling services, development of common online referral process, and development of a shared resource drive for the district's school adjustment counselors. And as previously mentioned, we are in the initial stages of the Woburn Critical Incident Response Team, which will respond to school buildings should a crisis occur. And building administrators feel that having a few extra counselors on hand will be helpful to support the building's counselors, administrators, faculty, and or students. This is based on the STARS response team. Under Family Community Engagement Liaisons, the 2021-2022 Massachusetts Family School Partnership Initiative, the district has been awarded a consultancy valued at $16,000 by DESE with School and Maine for the development of a family and community engagement strategic priorities. 4 cities out of Massachusetts were chosen. This is an opportunity to receive training, coaching, and strategic planning to support and strengthen the district's family engagement practice, provided by DESE in partnership with Pat Spradley and the School and Maine Institute. The team consists of Dr. Baldessari and Ms. Mendez-Sheldon as the co-chairs, myself, Mr. Martin, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Stinson, a teacher to be determined, and others. We started the assessment and reflection process on October 7th, and focus groups have been created utilizing students, staff, and parents and guardians. We've had enrollment assistance in person for 55 new EL students since the start of school. We are hearing stories of families crossing the border and racking up significant debt to those who assist them in crossing. Homeless enrollment is 37 as of the beginning of the month. Foster care enrollment 20. Winchester Leahy Hospital mini grant for the Woburn Public Schools Backpack Initiative with Council for Social Concern. $2,500 was awarded. Lisa in the Food Services Department will support backpack delivery on Fridays. The 21st Century Supporting After-School Learning Time opened on 10/12 for grades 1 and 2, and a Family Academy survey was sent last week. We have our new Community Engagement Liaison Assistant starting November 1st. The Economically Disadvantaged Supplemental allows district to change designation of students to economically disadvantaged when certain criteria are met and verified. 10 to 20 families and students have been identified. LPAC will meet again on November 1st, 2021 at 6:30 via Zoom. And DESE's Parent and Community Education and Involvement Advisory Council has accepted Ms. Mendez Sheldon to be a part of Educationer Commissioner Jeffrey Riley's council. SSA last met on October 20th. They had a number of updates from Ms. Ryan. There was a 3-question survey sent to all school committee candidates, and they've received a number back so far, and we'll be posting them to their website and Facebook page. Their next meeting is November 17th at 6:30, virtual only, and presenting from the Federation for Children with Special Needs on the topic of evaluations and eligibility, and we adjourned at 12:38 p.m.
Any questions for SSA? Dr. Wells?
Yeah, a couple of things. You mentioned that we're having trouble meeting students' needs for out-of-district. Doesn't that put us at risk, if we're not providing the services?
Well,
you mentioned that they were having trouble placing students out of district. And
well, because the SEAM doesn't have places.
I know, but just to the administration, I'm wondering, doesn't that place us at risk if we're not providing the services that the students are entitled to?
The quick answer is we're able to meet the needs right now, but it's taking longer. There's
okay, so we're meeting the needs. That's all I wanted to make sure.
But it's a challenge.
Okay. Yep.
Because there's no spots.
Because so
okay,
we have
but
to.
If we're meeting the needs, then
we have to be more creative.
I was just a little worried there. The question about the critical response team. I understand, and maybe get some more information. But if we have, needs in our own district, if we create a response team and then people leave our district, it sounds like our district people are overwhelmed already. Is that the best?
Well, the critical incident response, we have a protocol that's in writing, and the way that it's been, unfortunately, is what's out there in writing. Some of the people who are on it haven't really been trained to conduct in those roles, and it's a document that we have that needs to have some backup work behind it and some clear articulation. So we have a clinician now who's a member of the STARS team. He can be dispatched to another place if there's a major incident. But for incidents that are not that major, we have our own people who are highly qualified who would be available to go to another school if they're needed. Now, these situations are not common. We're talking about significant incidents, maybe the death of a staff member, the death of a parent, and then a person in the community, other acts of community violence that could take place. So it's not something that we anticipate would be frequently. It would happen frequently, but when these things happen now, what happens is Dr. Crowley, myself, and Mrs. Young, and Mr. Elkanata, we'd all get together in the morning at the school. Okay, what do we do?
Right.
Well, now we're going to have what do we do is going to be all spelled out well in advance so that we don't have to.
I have no problem with the internal workings of it. I was just a little worried if we develop a team that's really good and then they start sending them throughout the state.
No. We do have people who can go if they're called upon.
Okay.
But that's only 2 or 3
okay.
specialized
All right.
staff.
That wasn't clear. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. And then I have another question.
Of course, Dr. Wells. I'm sorry.
So Ms. Comia mentioned that they're bringing stuff to the plans to the subcommittee that have already been finalized. And, that's not my understanding of what subcommittees for. It should be the plan, here's what we want to do. Oh, you said implemented, I think. And I think the problem is, the way I understand the subcommittee is if the plan's been developed, it should be brought to the subcommittee and then finalized before it's implemented. Because bringing something after it's been implemented is like, say, great, we're doing this stuff, maybe stay home next time, we'll have a meeting. So I just want to be clear about that, because I think that's the best place for the Cpac personnel, because all our other subcommittees, that's how we work. So I just want to be clear, that's sort of the process everybody thinks should happen. Right.
Agreed.
Yep, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course, Dr. Wells. All right. Correspondence, again, what Mr. Kissel mentioned, we got a I looked up. Amanda von Herman brought some concerns about recess at the Shamrock, and I received the email, and I gave it to Dr. Crowley, and then the school committee as a whole also received an email, and I think Dr. Crowley has addressed it. Or
Yeah, it's been addressed. I mean, the question really was, is recess being taken away as a district protocol or policy? And the answer is no. And it was a singular event. It was handled by Mr. Clark at the school.
Excellent question, though. Last meeting, I got an email from Crystal Muse-Keating indicating I didn't mention her email at the last meeting. And I looked back, and it was addressed to administrators, but she did mean it to be a public email. And that was regarding her son, who was not invited to the Kennedy Middle School National Honor Society. And I also believe that administration has addressed that. It's a very serious issue. So I wanted to acknowledge both of her emails, the one that last email and then the email I received after the school committee meeting. Okay, and that's...
The only thing with that is I think it had the student's name, so I would just check to make sure she doesn't want that redacted.
No, she is... I'll take a motion to redact the child's name in the first email.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Okay. So, yes, thank you for reminding me. I was just going to black out the name, but we officially redacted it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all I have for correspondence. I just want to acknowledge that there's new art here, and so maybe next time, if it, we can have the students' names, the artists. But it's looking...
Ms. Tifo's working on getting it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Ms. Young. Yes, it's very important that we acknowledge these. Look at these things. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, so gorgeous. Who started doing this? Pat, John, Mike. Who?
Mike originated, everything kind of.
Mike
said one day, we need art.
It was mostly chalk, but no. It's come about, obviously
Once I think we formalized the room.
Yeah.
What a nice
did
tradition.
that, and just the emphasis on the arts. And the room looked kind of bland, so we had the opportunity to expose some of the students out on the rotating basis. Now I believe Ms. Young or Ms. McLeod would be our...
Miss Tifo.
Miss Tifo,
takes she works with the Fine Arts Department, this is, I believe, two of the elementary schools. I believe there's Reeves and Goodyear, and she'll post it. But she and Miss McLeod worked very hard to get these up.
Well, thank you, Ms.
It's a real labor of love.
Susan Tifo and Ms. McLeod, thank you so much. Absolutely wonderful. All right, so next time we will announce the names.
The unveiling.
As long as they don't go through the shredder.
And future agenda items, of course, we will be approving Dr. Hartley's goals. And we'll be monitoring our 80% off-ramp.
Policy check off the table stuff.
And what else for future agenda items? You can just send them to me or Dr. Crowley.
Could we get the student population, like how many students are currently enrolled in the system?
Okay.
And then also, could we have something, it doesn't have to be right away, but on, are we proceeding with looking at changing our start time to be consistent with the Middlesex League and the memorandum of understanding that the school superintendents signed a few years ago?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wells. Okay, so for executive session, I will announce that we do have something to discuss in executive session. It is, as you know, last meeting I announced that